I finally had a chance to play Expedition 33. I heard a lot about the game when it first came out, and I was incredibly excited to get into it. I just had other things in the way until a couple of weeks ago. I finally got a chance to sit down for a couple of days in a row, and I ended up putting in over 50 hours and completing the main story. I still haven't stopped playing since then. I've been on and off different recordings and different games and things like that, but I just felt like I wanted to talk about this. No script, just ad-libbing everything and just sharing my honest thoughts and opinions, because Expedition 33 is by far my game of the year and is very, very close to being one of my favorite games of all time. So for anybody who isn't familiar with what Expedition 33 is, essentially the world is on a ticking clock. The Paintress is an evil figure who is slowly counting down from 100, wiping out everybody, entire nations of people of that specific age. There have been many expeditions before 33, all of which have helped pave the way and set the stage for the adventure that we are about to go on. I don't want this video to be over an hour long. I don't want it even to be half-hour long, because I feel like nobody is going to watch that, and there are far more eloquent people who would be able to better explain the story and the concept behind it. So I'm just going to go through a couple of my favorite things as somebody who went into this expecting something good, not something incredible. To start, let's talk about the visuals. Everything you're seeing on screen now is captured at 1080p, not even 4K, on an Xbox Series X. I've heard rumors that they're bringing this game to the Nintendo Switch too, and I have no idea how they're planning on doing that, because it is such a beautiful game. But in a way, I can believe it, because as pretty as this game is, it is also incredibly well optimized. I don't think there was a single area in the game that I had noticeable dropped frames. The animations, the cutscenes, everything visually about this game is absolutely jaw-dropping. And the whole game revolves around the Paintress and this love for art. And it's weird because you genuinely feel like you're walking through and experiencing these beautiful, ethereal, magical worlds that are like a painting or a beautiful work of art, and you are exploring that canvas. Then there are the characters that you meet in the game, and there are many notable figures. Andy Serkis, who played Gollum, and pretty much every single major voice actor and motion captured character known to man, he's in this game. He plays the antagonist and he does a fantastic job. Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil, he is incredible, and I didn't even notice it was him until I saw a post on Reddit. There are many other characters in this game. Some you may know, some you may not, but I think for me personally, my favorites were definitely Mael and Gustav, who are the two characters that you initially start the game with. Mael ultimately ends up being the focal point of the game. I'm trying to avoid spoilers as we go through this. Gustav is a fantastic character, and I love every moment with him. But there's something about the way that Mael handles her character and how emotive her performances are. It really reminded me of Final Fantasy X, which is one of my favorite games of all time, and we'll get into the correlations between this game and many other JRPGs in a minute. But those games back in the day, the ones that were so emotionally expressive, games like Kingdom Hearts, where you became so very attached to the characters, a lot of these games are honored in Expedition 33. There are very few video game characters that I've truly connected with, and I gotta say, pretty much all of the main cast of this, despite Gustav and Mael being my favorites, they all are incredible. And as I got close to the final hours of Expedition 33, and you could feel the ending creeping up on you, it was an experience that I didn't want to end, and I was just left in awe, both at the story, at the characters. There were moments where I wept without the story, and I had so many questions after that. I don't know if they're planning a sequel. Apparently they're considering other games, and I really just want to see these characters and this world and this lore expanded upon in one way or another because of how remarkable it was. So visuals are 10 out of 10. Character development and storytelling is 10 out of 10 as well. The music isn't something I'm going to spend too much time on because I'm far from a musician or an expert in that field, but let's just say that this is one of the games that I have bought an OST for, and that has not happened often at all. The music in this game is incredible, and when it's emotional, it helps bring out everything in the scene, and when it's time for a fight, the music accompanies that, and it really gets the adrenaline going. And speaking of combat is something that I saw a lot of questions about when we first saw the trailers and people start getting their hands on the game. And I gotta say, there was an element of me that was like, are we still doing turn-based combat? And I thought I was past it. This game showed me how wrong I was. Again, this took me straight back to my roots as a Final Fantasy player, falling in love with that turn-based combat, but then they just leveled it up. The necessity to dodge and parry in this game is really fun, and in those times where you're meant to be planning and strategically figuring out, okay, well, who's going next, you also have to bear in mind that, okay, you may be able to get this hit on the enemy on the next turn, get a crit and take him down, but then if they hit you first and you are unable to dodge, it doesn't matter how skillful or tactful you are, you may not even get to your turn. This is incredibly apparent when it comes to boss fights. There are enemies that you will go up against in the first hour of the game that you should not be fighting, especially when you're still getting to grips with the game and the mechanics. Even on my second playthrough in New Game Plus, I did not expect these enemies to be troublesome. I would have assumed after 50 hours I would have got a hang of the mechanics, but they are still difficult, even going through it a second time. The later game enemies and the secret bosses that you have an option to take down, but you definitely shouldn't until you're like 20 or 30 levels higher, they add a sense of terror and engagement and excitement, knowing that even when you finish the main story, there's still so many adventures and so many enemies to take on. I completed the main story and I hadn't even worked through 30-40% of the enemies that were in the game. Then there's this whole system of unlocking new attacks and combining them with other attacks and pictos to be able to make an overpowered build, and it's a very complicated system when you first start getting into it, but after watching a couple of YouTube tutorials and figuring out how these can be paired together and how to utilize them best to get the best version of the character that you're playing as, it's one of the most fun systems that I've ever used. And I'm not a big fan of like making these crazy builds that cater to a specific thing. I prefer just being able to play as whoever I want and take down whoever I want without worrying about this stuff, but I really enjoyed the mechanics here. I'll be honest with you, I could spend hours talking about the combat, the characters, everything about this game. It is 2 o'clock in the morning. I just finished the game, and this recording, this voiceover is going to sit here probably for like 2 months before I have a chance to edit it. I just needed to yap about it and tell you guys how excited I am and try and get you to play the game because it is so good. I also want to touch on the exploration because I said about the enemies and I had finished the game and there were still enemies that I hadn't taken down, and that's because you don't actually unlock the ability to explore everything in the game until the end game, or perhaps even after. I managed to complete the game and I still had areas of the map that I wasn't able to reach because I hadn't unlocked every single method of traversal. I'm not going to spoil how you unlock these things because again I feel like it's better if you experience that for yourself, but just know that even if you reach the final battle and you take down the big bad boss, you haven't found everything, you haven't searched every nook and cranny, and if you have, you've put about 200 to 300 hours into the game. There is one boss, even now that I've completed the game and I've done a little bit extra, that I haven't even tried to do. His name's Simon, and that's all I'm going to give you. Just look it up on YouTube, try to avoid spoilers, and look for Simon boss fight, and just look at the reactions that people have to this, and you'll understand why I'm going to avoid that one for a while. There's items hidden in places, there's secret bosses stashed around corners that you wouldn't even think about, there's little hidden areas and levels like this game right here, the gestural beaches. There's a couple of these in the game, and they're so hard to do, they're so annoying, but they're so fun and pointless. The reward is normally something really trivial, again, no spoilers, but the fact that things like this were put into the game, it's absurd. And yet I love it. And knowing what the reward was, despite it being silly, I still traversed for 45 minutes up this crazy contraption of a building to get the reward because it was just so fun. And what's crazy, and I can't believe I'm saying this, these silly, stupid levels, these little events and the bosses hidden around the corners and the hidden items and all the rest of it, they are all lore-friendly, like they are meant to be there, and you don't even realize that until the end of the game. And I'm sure I touched on this earlier, but the story, my god, it is so beautiful, and there are twists and turns. I feel like every single character had so much depth, and there's so much lore about the world, and there's so much to learn about every character and every nook and cranny. There are these little areas that have entire suites of lore that tie in with other lore that you find somewhere, and it's just, this game, for the first of a franchise, has more depth to it than pretty much any game I have played in recent memory. But I think I should probably wrap up this video here because I recognize that it is me just gushing about this thing. But like I said, I have just finished it. I needed to talk about it because it is one of the best games I've ever played. The developers are just constantly supporting this game because they want it to be the best version of the game it possibly can be. And that is so highly appreciated in an age where it's just easy to let go and say, cool, we got the money now, let's move on to the next thing. Now, I highly doubt that any of the developers, the directors, the writers of Expedition 33 are going to watch this video, but if you do, I just want to give a massive round of applause and say thank you, because this experience playing through the game, the immediate want for me just to run to my PC and record a voiceover that's going to sit here until I have time, but just a need to tell somebody about this. I haven't felt like that for such a long period of time, and I really, really appreciate everything about this game. Please go and check it out. I'm pretty sure it's on Game Pass, but if you can, buy the game, support the developers, and keep an eye out for any other updates that come to this game or part of the franchise in the future, whether it's a sequel, prequel, hell, I'll take a board game or a book. Subscribe for more videos like this, preferably the ones where I'm not whispering into a microphone in the middle of the night. I love your faces. You're amazingly beautiful, and I'll catch you in the next one.